Facing bailiff or high court enforcement action and worried about how much charges could increase your debt? Let's look at this and see how much bailiff and enforcement officers can charge for their services. If you go to court and receive a CCJ, then a bailiff or enforcement officer will likely be authorised to collect your debt. Bailiffs and enforcement officers don't work for free, they charge for their services, a cost which is added to the total amount of the debt that you owe. High Court Enforcement Officer or County Court Bailiff. Before we dive into how much county court enforcement agents can charge to enforce the debt, you need to make sure you are really dealing with county court bailiffs. The county court is one of two civil courts in England and Wales. The other is the High Court, which typically deals with larger debt cases or debts not covered by consumer credit agreement. If you are dealing with certified enforcement agents from the High Court, HCEO, instead of the County Court, the fees will differ at certain stages, especially the latter stages. We'll cover High Court Enforcement Officer fees later in the video. How much do bailiffs charge? County Court bailiffs follow a three-step procedure to enforce the debt, aiming for a resolution as early as possible within that process. The further into that process things go, the more the cost of their services increases. The first step is that a bailiff will send out a notice of enforcement letter to you. As soon as the enforcement agent sends this letter, a fee of £75 is added to your debt. The letter will ask you for full payment or ask you to agree to a repayment plan secured against your valuables, known as a controlled goods agreement. The initial communication will also provide notice of their intended first visit if you do not make any other arrangements. The second step is enforcement. If you fail to pay the debt within 7 days, fail to take on a controlled goods agreement, or you simply ignore the notice of enforcement, the bailiff will come to visit you at your address. The cost for bailiffs to come to your address and try to collect the money owed is a fixed fee of £235. If they are trying to collect more than £1,000, they will also be charging 7.5% of the value of any debt above £1,000. So, for example, if you had a debt of £2,000, you'd be charged an extra £75 on top of the £235 for the visit. Ouch. If the enforcement agent has to come back again, you can be charged this fee again. You might be able to avoid this fee if you are deemed vulnerable. Contact the enforcement agent to explain why you are vulnerable. Some examples of vulnerable debtors include single parents, disability, mental health issues, or recent bereavement. They won't take away any goods during the initial visit, but they will create a list of what goods they intend to take away and sell towards paying off your debt. This process is known as taking control of your goods. Step 3 is the sale of your controlled goods. If the county court bailiff manages to take control of your goods, they will keep them stored before selling them at an auction. Preparing the goods for sale and selling them comes with an additional cost of £110 plus 7.5% of the value of any money owed above £1,000. The service provided by the bailiff can become very expensive, especially if it goes beyond that first notice of enforcement stage. You really should try to make contact with a bailiff early on to search for a resolution and avoid those hefty fees. Additional county court bailiff costs. The bailiff may be allowed to charge you for other costs associated depending on your case. If during the process they have to use external services such as a locksmith or companies to tow away your vehicle, these costs may be passed down to you as well. High Court Bailiff Fees. High Court bailiffs or enforcement officers use a different fee structure to recover payment. The High Court Bailiff service fee for initial contact is £75, followed by a fixed fee of £190 for the first visit. If a payment is missed, you could be charged £495. The sales stage of the process costs £525 plus 7.5% of the value of any money owed above £1,000. As such, High Court bailiff fees costs can really add up. It's also worth mentioning that if a creditor decides to transfer a debt over to a High Court for enforcement, the cost of taking it to the High Court can be passed from the creditor to the debtor. Search for free money advice services and bailiff help. Whether you are struggling to understand the real cost of bailiff court fees or are simply worried about having to deal with certified enforcement agents, then the Citizens Advice Service may be able to help. Of course, it's always far better to deal with your finances before things escalate to court and bailiff action. If you're struggling with debt, then there are options available here in the UK. Some are free to use and others include fees, and each will have their own pros and cons. If you want to learn more about the solutions available, then we've created a really great form that you might be interested in. Click the link in the description to get started and answer a few multiple choice questions like the total amount of your debt, how many people you owe, your living situation, and we'll connect you with one of our trusted partners so that you can find out more and start taking steps towards improving your financial situation.